On the 20th of May, 1981, Jennifer Kesse was born in Orlando, Florida. Earlier in her life, she attended Vivian Gaither High School and graduated from the University of Central Florida in 2003 with a degree in finance. Later in life, Jennifer worked in Ocoee as a finance manager for Central Florida Timeshare Investments and had purchased a condo in Orlando. The week before her disappearance, Kesse and her boyfriend spent a weekend vacationing in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The following Monday of January 23, 2006, Jennifer returned to work. After work, her father and boyfriend were both spoken to at around 6:15 and 10 p.m. respectively. This is where things get odd. Jennifer had a habit of texting or calling her boyfriend before she left for work. However, on Tuesday the 24th of January, Kesse's boyfriend called her after not hearing from her and his call was immediately sent to voicemail. Shortly afterwards, Kesse's employer contacted her parents due to her being a no-show at work. Jennifer's parents then drove 2 hours to their daughter's home. After searching both the inside and outside, they noticed that clothes and a wet towel had been prepared, possibly suggesting that she was preparing for work before she disappeared. However, her parents also noticed that Kesse's car was missing from her driveway. Later on in the evening, further family members and friends began to organize search efforts for Jennifer. Backup was also called and the Orlando Police Department helped with foot patrols, horseback, helicopters, boats, and ATVs in further attempts to locate Kesse. Just 2 days later, on Thursday the 26th of January, a tenant of a nearby apartment complex, having seen Jennifer's car on the news, notified the police that what he believed to be Kesse's car had been parked in front of their same apartment complex for a few days. After arriving, police confirmed the car to be the same 2004 Chevy Malibu belonging to Kesse. Her car was promptly photographed and towed for forensic investigation. Shortly after examining footage in the vicinity of the apartment, Orlando police discovered footage showing an unidentified person parking and walking away from Jennifer's car. Footage showed this unidentified suspect parking Kesse's car in front of the complex at around noon on the day of her disappearance. Unfortunately, the security camera was not one that was programmed to record a live feed, and instead only took photos every 3 seconds. Because of this camera's feature, the only 3 shots taken of the suspect showed their face obscured by a fence separating them and the camera. One journalist dubbed this suspect the luckiest person of interest ever. NASA and the FBI were both brought in to help with investigations. Their aid proved useful as it was determined that the subject was a male with a height ranging between 5 foot 3 inches and 5 foot 5 inches. Investigators determined that there was no sign of struggle or forced entry into Jennifer's home. They were also left with the conclusion that she was most likely abducted from her home while heading towards her car. After viewing the footage, investigators brought in close friends and family of Jennifer. Among those questioned were her boyfriend, parents, brother, and even her ex-boyfriend, who police suspected may have been the culprit. Sadly, none of these interrogations turned up any leads, and all in Kesse's immediate relationships were innocent. The only real lead that came of these interrogations involved nearby construction workers, whom Jennifer told her family had repeatedly catcalled and harassed her. However, many of these workers were foreign and had little to no knowledge of English. This hampered any efforts from interrogators, and nothing further from the workers was uncovered. Detectives were able to determine that Jennifer's car was purposefully wiped of any real DNA evidence. Only a small DNA fiber and latent print remained from the perpetrator. Although several items of Kesse's were left in the car, leading detectives to believe that robbery was not the motive, several of her items were stolen, including her phone, iPod, wallet, keys, briefcase, purse, and even the outfit that she was wearing. In 2007, Kesse's company offered a $1 million reward for any information leading to the location of Jennifer, with the stipulation that she had to be alive and a deadline of July the 4th. This reward was never claimed. On May the 20th of 2025, Jennifer's 44th birthday, the Florida Department of Legal Enforcement made it public that they had spoken to over 40 people and thousands of pages had been read since they were handed the case in December of 2022. The department also stated that they had acquired several persons of interest and that the case was no longer cold. Jennifer Kesse is still to this day missing. John Parsons Wheeler was born in Laredo, Texas on December 14, 1944. Wheeler was born into an accomplished military family, with his father serving in World War II and his great-grandfather, Joseph Wheeler, serving in both the Confederate and United States Army. As an adult, John Wheeler saw accomplishments in many positions as a soldier, in law, and in business. He was also the chairman of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund from 1979 to 1989 and oversaw the construction of the Vietnam War Memorial in 1982. Later on in life, Wheeler worked as an aide for George H.W. Bush and helped establish the Earth Conservation Corps. Wheeler owned properties in Newcastle, Delaware, and New York City. This is where the strange occurrences begin. Wheeler had bipolar disorder and was said to have been prone to forgetfulness and quirky behavior. His disorder was so severe that he was, in 2004, hospitalized for a manic episode. On December the 28th of 2010, a man matching Wheeler's description was spotted in Newcastle, Delaware, throwing smoke bombs into a neighboring home. Wheeler had, for 3 years prior to this, filed lawsuits challenging the zoning of the neighboring home as he did not want his view of the Delaware River to be obstructed. This led many to believe that Wheeler's smoke bombs were actually an attempt of arson on the nearby home. One day later, on the 29th of December, Wheeler was spotted at the courthouse parking garage of Newcastle wearing only one shoe and carrying the other shoe as it was damaged. Wheeler explained to an attendee working at the parking garage that his briefcase had been stolen and that he was not inebriated. Wheeler then told the attendee that he claimed that he wanted to warm up before paying a parking fee, despite the fact that his car was later found in an entirely different parking garage. He was noted as being cautious when going up and down stairs as well. Later in the evening, around 6 p.m., Wheeler asked his pharmacist for a ride to the train station in Wilmington, Delaware. The pharmacist called a cab for him, but saw that Wheeler looked upset. On December 30th, John Wheeler's friends suspected something was up, as he didn't email them despite an Army football team match going his way, something his family said would be of interest to him. Upon venturing to his home early in the morning, friends found Wheeler's home to be in disarray with furniture and items moved or tipped over, but seemingly nothing was stolen. At 8 a.m. that same day, Wheeler purchased a coffee from a Subway on Delaware Avenue in Wilmington. He paid using cash that was loose in his pocket. The owner of the store took note of John's clothes, which he said were dirty, and even with the cold temperatures of the December morning, his outfit did not include a coat. Wheeler then visited a nearby law office, and when leaving, he was captured by a security camera. In the surveillance video, it seems as if Wheeler is attempting to hide his face. At 3:30 p.m., Wheeler walked into a nearby Small Business Administration office and asked for a ride to Philadelphia. It's possible that Wheeler wanted to take another train to New York City after arriving in Philadelphia. The office's administrator refused to describe Wheeler's conversation with her there. However, a different employee of the office described her own conversation with Wheeler, saying that Wheeler referred to himself as a fellow federal employee. She then asked which agency he was in, but Wheeler did not answer and left the office. Some sources say that Wheeler was last seen alive at 8:30 to 9 p.m. on a surveillance video in downtown Wilmington, and it is not known where he spent the night. One source said somebody possibly matching John Wheeler's description had taken a taxi from Wilmington to Newark, Delaware, with Wheeler at 11 p.m. On December 31st, 2010, Wheeler's body was seen by a landfill worker as it fell onto a trash heap at the Cherry Island landfill in Wilmington, Delaware. Police later claimed that all the stops made Friday, December 31st by the garbage truck before it arrived at the landfill involved large commercial disposal bins in Newark. The truck would have started its route before 4:30 a.m. and arrived at the landfill by 10 a.m., after making several stops including businesses, a public library, a car dealership, and a seniors complex, locations which were mostly covered by cameras. Based on the position Wheeler was discovered while in the truck, the dumpster he was in was likely picked up near the beginning of the route. Investigators are unsure whether Wheeler was killed in Wilmington or elsewhere. The investigation was led by Newark police and assisted by Wilmington police and the FBI. Police gave Wheeler's then-wife, Catherine Kleiss, conflicting information regarding him suffering a heart attack before he died. Kleiss said it was unlikely he was robbed, as his body was found still wearing a Rolex watch and West Point class ring. Catherine also said that he made many enemies during his career in national defense, but she believed that there was nobody who would resort to killing Wheeler. She and her family offered a $25,000 reward for information about John Wheeler's death. On January 28, 2011, the Delaware State Medical Examiner's Office reported Wheeler's cause of death as assault and blunt force trauma without any elaboration. He was assaulted at minimum from the neck up. His remains were interred at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors on April 29th of 2011. On May 5th, 2017, at around 7:40 a.m., a jogger in London was running along a bridge. He then ran near a woman and, instead of maneuvering around her, pushed her off of the street into an oncoming double-decker bus. Thankfully, the bus driver, Olivier Saubry, was able to react fast enough and swerved out of the way before causing mortal damage to the woman. Strangely enough, the woman was ignored as the man returned while jogging back up the bridge only 15 minutes later. After investigations were launched, a 41-year-old banker named Eric Belquist was wrongfully arrested despite having irrefutable proof that he was in the U.S. at the time of the footage being captured. Further attempts were made by body language experts to uncover the jogger's identity, claiming that his upright running should be recognizable and that his clenched fist showed that he is full of anger or prone to red mist. A police spokesman later told News that officers had reviewed over 50 people of interest but had yet to find the real suspect. Unfortunately, all reasonable lines of inquiry had been exhausted and the investigation was closed. The jogger is to this day unapprehended. Relisha Rudd was born in October of 2005. For much of her life, Relisha lived with her mother in a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C. Her mother, Shamika Young, became close with a janitor working at the shelter named Khalil Tatum. Tatum was in his early 50s and had racked up quite a criminal record, including offenses of larceny, burglary, and breaking and entering. He also had prison stints from 1993 to 2003, and once more from 2004 to 2011. Unfortunately, Khalil had a reputation of inappropriate relationships with shelter students and had a particular focus on young girls. After Shamika and Khalil became close, Khalil purchased Relisha a tablet and at one point even bought her tickets and took her to see Disney on Ice. For some reason, Shamika eventually let Tatum take her daughter Relisha to stay with him overnight on the pretense that the two would be staying with Tatum's grandmother. At some point in February of 2014, Relisha stopped showing up for school. However, attempts from the school to find Relisha were stopped before they really even began, as her grandmother, Melissa Young, provided notes to the school claiming that Relisha was being treated for health problems by a Dr. Tatum. The school then contacted Tatum at the number provided on the note, but he failed to show up for a meeting, leading to a school counselor officially reporting Relisha as missing. The Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C. launched a search for Relisha Rudd on the 19th of March, 1 month since anyone at the school had seen her. After some time, investigators were able to find security footage of Tatum and Rudd walking down a hallway in a Holiday Inn Express in northeast Washington, D.C. on the 26th of February. Further footage on March 1st showed her walking with Tatum to a room in a Days Inn on New York Avenue in D.C. This March 1st footage would be the last evidence that Rudd was still alive. On March 20th, Khalil Tatum's wife, Andrea, was found dead inside of a motel in Maryland. She had been shot in the head. Tapes at this Maryland motel show Khalil and Andrea entering the same room in which Andrea was most likely murdered by her husband. Khalil Tatum was last seen on the 2nd of March buying a lime, 42-gallon trash bags, and a shovel. Police obtained a warrant for Tatum's arrest, but he was found dead on the 31st of March inside of a shed in Kenilworth Park. Investigators claimed that the death was a suicide using the same gun that Andrea was shot with. After this news was made public, theories began to circulate regarding the motives and people involved. One theory for what happened to Rudd involved her mother, Shamika, selling her to Khalil, but several authorities have said that this is unlikely. Others additionally believe that Tatum murdered Andrea in order to keep his relationship with Relisha under wraps, but that doesn't entirely explain why Tatum killed himself. At the time of writing this, Relisha Rudd has been missing for a little over 11 and a half years with no new leads anywhere in the news.